when you are meeting with these individuals, so you know what their needs are.
What are some misconceptions that you hear in your practices?
You need to wake up to the reality that aging is different now.
Welcome to the Empowered Elder Podcast.
Previously on the Empowered Elder Podcast.
It's about why we're here is that falls are not only a physical crisis, an emergency for a family, but they often lead to a financial one as well.
Welcome back to the Empowered Elder Podcast. If you joined us for part 1, you heard how a single fall can become a turning point, not just physically, but emotionally and financially.
And today we're continuing that conversation, but shifting the focus from what happens after a crisis to what we can do before one happens.
Because while we can't predict every life event, we can prepare for how we respond to them.
Annie, Larissa, welcome back for part 2. Having a plan in place definitely makes things easier. I joke with my family, the way we handle it, like we'll just make a joke of it, but there's serious underlining tones, right? That you got it all taken care of. Like, let's talk about what you've put in place, because I'm happy to help, but I'm not going to do this alone. But we laugh about it, but it's serious in nature, because I don't want to be in a crisis mode and making decisions where you could have made those decisions ahead of time, or we could have talked about that, right? So it is definitely, we want to help, but let's just not be in crisis mode when it happens, right?
And I think it's a very generational thing too. Like, I think, Annie and I were both raised by the boomer generation. Awesome generation, also stubborn, right? And not wanting to admit when there's a problem or admit that they need help a lot of times. I mean, obviously these are stereotypes, but I think a lot of them are true. There's plenty for our generation too that they could comment on. But again, like, being aware of yourself and when you need help is so important, because asking for it before it's a serious situation is so much more helpful.
But asking for it can be really hard because it really requires you to be vulnerable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So financially, I don't want you to know about like the bad decisions that I've made. Right. And physically, I'm active. I'm sure, I get up and move. Yeah, right.
Totally.
So it's admitting the reality, not painting the rosy picture.
Right.
Right. So that vulnerability comes in on both sides. How do you counter that when you know clearly that someone is struggling with really, truly telling you the full story?
I mean, I think I've gotten better at that with just my years of being a practitioner and having some of those tough conversations. And I know that, so much of, I always talk about it with my coworkers and other PTs, the longer you've been practicing, the more you realize that it's the soft skills that make people better, right? Connecting, hearing, listening, really kind of making more patient-centered goals versus the goals that I have for you. That matters not, So it takes practice to communicate like that. So it's not something that is easy. But again, kind of having somebody help facilitate is helpful as well. Like, I have a friend who I grew up with, and her dad doesn't want any help, kind of with that stuff. And she's asked me, she's like, would you ever be willing to kind of like be almost like a mediator of a family conversation? I'm like, sure, but that's it's a nuanced thing. And so we all just, again, have to kind of play to our strengths and keep trying to improve where we can. And
One thing that comes to mind for me is when we're working with clients and their plans, and we're trying to see, will their money last their lifetime? And there's often, we want to be generous with our time and caring for our parents. And a lot of these elders want to be generous with their adult children and their grandchildren, sometimes more generous than they can afford to be when they have these other things that they're going to need to pay for in their lifetime. And so we want to be on top of that for our clients too, and make sure that they have a clear picture of saying, hey, you can you've got 3 grandchildren now, and in 5 years you might have 7 grandchildren. Can you continue to gift to the grandchildren and be this generous? And if you can, that's wonderful, and still ensure that you and your spouse, or at least through your lifetime, you're taken care of financially. We need to know, and the only way rather that we can figure that out is if we get everything in one place. If we see your whole financial picture in one place, then we can help make these decisions that we can be more generous with family financially during a lifetime, giving with a warm hand, or we can protect the elder and say, no, you can't. We're gonna factor in that you might need a little bit more than you assumed. Especially with longevity, let's assume that you're going to live. If you're 85 years old now, there's a great chance you're going to make it to 95. And we need to make sure that the money's going to last, and that if that involves long-term care needs, if that involves downsizing and moving, all of the things that are going to cost money. And we just want to make sure that everybody's that there's a plan kind of from all angles, I think is what I mean, is how we need to look at that.
And we started this conversation, we started talking about how the 2 different professions are coming together to help individuals who are aging or going through recovery. What was the moment? Like, how did you realize? I mean, I know you had worked together, in that space, but do you think that was just a natural fitting, or how do you find collaborating with other professions kind of pulls it together? Because we've seen how by you 2 sharing helps clients. But what about the other professionals out there? And what does that collaboration look like?
I have met some great professionals via events I've gone to, estate planning events local to the community, downsizing home events, people that I never thought that I would meet or that would be in my network. And an example is someone who places seniors in, a senior care consultant who helps when and if it arises to help place them in a great place for them. And in advance of needing that. So just establishing that relationship. And so everybody that I've met has been that I'm drawn to. I feel almost like I'm vetting these professionals for my clients. And so that I can grab a name and a number, and this person will pick up the phone when I say, hey, I have a client who needs to speak with you. Do you have time today? And they'll pick up the phone, and we already have a relationship. They're local here, which helps. I don't even think that our prior kind of collaboration is as common as it should be. It certainly wasn't for me in many years, because I didn't know somebody that I felt confident referring to. So once I met Larissa, she got a little overwhelmed with all the, it was really easy to find the need to refer. And I think now, again, we've talked about it. I don't know how many financial planners have a physical therapist that's top of mind. But the conversations that we have with clients are far beyond their investments and their financial life, that it goes well beyond that. And so I would love to grab some names from both of you too, because I've met some great people that are certainly not in your traditional space of referral.
Well, and it's important, right? Because we do the same thing in our networking and growing just the sphere of influence that, we know people because we're all passionate about helping. So like you said, if I can't help, I want to find someone who can, right? But it's truly understanding who they are at their core and their why. So they're not chasing the transaction, chasing the money, chasing the story, that they're really there to help at that, deep, deep level. When you are out networking and meeting others, when you hear of a kind of category that you hadn't heard before, how do you vet those professionals to know that that's the one that I'm going to add to my referral list? I mean, I have my own answer, but
yes, that's a good. I'm doing more. I will be honest with people, and I'll say I'm vetting you. I'll say I want to. Can we grab coffee together? Can we hop on a Zoom if we don't live close by? And I'll tell them my motive for it. And I'll say, I'm vetting you because I want to feel confident passing your name on to my clients. I want to feel really confident. What do you do for, what does it look like to work with you? Are you responsive? what and you can tell, I think, often relatively easily, especially in the greater Denver area, people are connected. That's how I found you all, actually. And so through a trusted source. And so people are connected. And the more people you meet in this like tight community who serves the same population, we can feel pretty confident, I think, referring to those that do, and people niche down, right? People niche really down. And one example would be, I mean, that you specifically work with someone who is selling their home, their last big home, in order to downsize it, and that, or you're the company that comes in and makes that next move feel just like your home, and donate the items or determine what to keep and what to keep, what moves on to family, and what to take a photograph and catalog. And so I never knew there were so many specialties out there.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, I know that there are a plethora of financial advisors, just like real estate professionals, mortgage professionals, PT even, right? And knowing who to work with is important. Knowing who not to work with is almost more important, right? Because we're not all created equal.
Correct.
And there are a lot of people out touting that they have the skill set, they have the knowledge, they have the background, they have the experience. Just because they say they can help doesn't mean they should help, right?
Absolutely.
So we all have to work harder at vetting and making sure that who we're recommending is an extension of us and our brand and you and your brand, right? That we collaborate together intentionally, right? When you're working with PT and you know that someone needs OT or, orthopedic or whatever, do you help kind of guide your clients into those realms as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so in the state of Colorado, you can come direct access to physical therapy. So we're seeing a lot more people that are almost treating us as part of their primary care team, right? And so
Brilliant.
We need to have those resources. So yeah, I'm giving surgeon recommendations all the time. I have an OT group that I love whenever I have a complicated hand problem, because I'm like, yeah, you would be way better seeing these people, right?
I know nothing about that.
And so, it takes time, right? And it takes, like, she shares patients with me, I share patients with her. When I have somebody, I know that if I send her an email or give her a call, she'll pick up the phone real quick. I think that's really important. Relative to surgeons, absolutely. We know that surgeons have to be smart, but they aren't all created equal. I always tell everybody, if you're considering an orthopedic surgery, talk to a PT about how their outcomes look, because, hearing about a surgeon's outcomes from the surgeon is very different than a surgeon, or the outcomes of a surgeon, when you talk to the person who's spending months with them afterwards.
Yeah,
so
helping in that recovery mode.
Yeah, so that's, I think, a really, really important thing. And, for me, I look at, a provider's outcomes, but then also how good are they at communicating? I think it all comes down to communication. Are you responsive? Are you listening? Are you meeting this patient's needs kind of in a whole sense, right? Obviously, you're meeting the needs of their knee replacement, but are you meeting them where they're at, emotionally? And that is huge. Our trust in our healthcare providers has a huge impact on how we're going to improve or not.
And even if you're in, like, a surgeon or somebody that's caring for an older individual, right? So they may need more hand holding and more time. Like, they don't want just somebody to come in 2 seconds, look at it and go, okay, I'm out and going to the next patient. So when you are meeting with these individuals, you're knowing what their specific needs are. Or you may have a patient that really doesn't want any fluff, doesn't want to talk. So making sure you're making that connection, as we talked about, you're getting to know your client or your patient closely, so you know what their needs are, and making sure that you're kind of matching up that fit, right?
Yep. And I think that it's really easy, especially for, like, a new grad medical provider, to feel like you have to do it all yourself. And it takes it takes time to realize like, wow, the longer I've been out, the less I feel like I know. And the more I need to like, have this community of other really smart people to help get these people better. So I think that comes with confidence, right? It comes with confidence in your skill set, and confidence in knowing when that's not your skill set, and confidence in telling somebody, hey, I'm not the person, but I'm going to help you find that person.
Yeah, and being comfortable in that space, doing that,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
That's not my expertise.
No, totally. And I don't think I had that when I was a new grad, because I was still trying to really prove myself.
I can do it. I got it. You're like, I don't know
figure
what
it
I'm
out.
doing.
I'll figure it out.
Let me go look at my textbook in the office real quick. So.
Yeah. I mean, your longevity in your business speaks volumes, right? Because that's not a common thing that we hear. So kudos
Thank you.
for that.
Thank you.
Perfect.
What are some misconceptions that you hear in your practices about aging? What are some common misconceptions?
I think one is that there is not much you can do to stop the decline. And I think obviously there's tons of research, which, the general population's not reading that. I am, but I see it one little aspect of my job. I do, part clinical work where I'm treating, surge, post-ops, any type of pain. And then another where my coworker and I, we run basically a fitness program at a local assisted living place. And what
I love that. That's so cool.
Again, kind of like what people expect when they go to assisted living is that there's going to be a gradual decline in pretty much every aspect of life, cognitive, functional, all of that. And we actually did, we collect a lot of data, and we kind of do, where are they on these specific functional tests when they first start seeing us? And then we retest those every 3 to 4 months. And in this population that we are expecting people to decline, we're actually seeing people stay the same or improve, which again, in this population, stability is awesome. Improvement is even better. So it can happen even in the populations that you would not expect it.
That speaks even more towards the preventative maintenance kind of mode, right?
Another misconception, if I ask my 10 and 11-year-old daughters, what does grandma do? Oh, grandma, they're going to say, sits in a rocking chair, reading a book or knitting. The grandmas in Colorado and the grandpas in Colorado are not sitting in a rocking chair. Most of them are not. I see them on the mountain bike trails. I see them running. They're traveling. So aging is different than it used to be. We're living longer and we're doing more things. People are still taking huge trips if they can and if they want to, and they're really active in many different ways. They're on the golf course, or in so many different ways. They're taking adult education courses. So misconception is that we have a grandma sitting in a rocking chair, and that's what you're going to do. And certainly not the case. And so we need to wake up to the reality that aging is different now. And especially if we take pretty good care of ourselves when we're younger, hopefully you may be just as active in your 70s as you were in your 40s. Some people are healthier in their 70s and then they were in their younger years when they were busier and they didn't have the time to take care of themselves. And so what does that look like? What are those, decades look like for you? What do you want to be doing? How much money does that cost to be doing what you want to be doing and supporting your lifestyle?
Yeah, I have a friend whose elder dad is an Ironman athlete. And you're like, wait, what?
Amazing.
Because for me, an Ironman is young, buff, right? And to hear that he's doing this is just incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, one other thing is a misconception is that it has to be expensive. I mean, I think if we look at statistics, the people that are, living longer, obviously they're having greater access to healthcare, to some of these services that many of us take for granted. So I think that there's a lot you can do from at least a physical activity standpoint that doesn't require money. Easy exercises that you can do at home is a great place to start. Walking every day is a great place to start. Have a lot of financial means kind of to at least start that process of the physical health.
That's funny. One of the questions I was going to ask is, what does aging with strength and security mean to each of you? And I think you just covered that. Like, that was perfect because it really is looking at it from a different perspective than not the grandma sitting in the rocking chair. That's not what it looks like, right? Not at all.
So for someone who does feel unprepared, what are the small steps that they can take now to move them in the right direction? Literally move them financially and physically.
From a physical standpoint, I would just start with, making some intentional walking happening every day, and a lot of patients I see are like, well, yeah, I go to the grocery store. I'm like, no, like walk to walk, right? Like if you have the ability to walk safely, walk to walk. If you don't, that's where, let's talk to your healthcare team and how can we get you in front of somebody that can help you walk better and safer before you do that by yourself. So doing something every day. The minimum that I try to have people do, I usually say 20 minutes of moderate intensity exercise. Like, let's just make that kind of your first goal. Okay. And that doesn't have to look like anything glamorous. And then work on one balance exercise. And I always tell people, like, your balance exercises is when you're waiting for the microwave to beep. So you're sitting there standing by something nice and stable. That is your time to work on balance every day. So keeping it palatable, keeping it small at first. And then once people really feel like, okay, now my body is like really craving this and craving more, and I feel like time-wise I can do it, that's when, oh man, the possibilities are endless from there. But starting small, starting simple is huge.
And does the 20 minutes have to all be at the same time?
Not necessarily, no. But you want to get that heart rate up. So that's huge.
I like how you say being intentional. So what you're saying, if for somebody I know who might be listening, going up and down the stairs to do laundry is not the form of exercise that somebody might think that it is, right?
Yes. Now, if you made it intentional, like, I'm going to go up and down these stairs 5 times in a row and get, 5 minutes of good heart rate, rising, great. Yeah. That's it. But you carrying a laundry basket at the same time is not intentional.
It's not cutting it. Got it.
And be careful of a fall.
Yeah, that's true. That's right.
That makes me really
Make sure there's a railing and you can hold on to
That was a phone call we had. I was taking the vacuum upstairs. I'm like, no, what? You have no business doing that. Please don't do that. You have people that can help you.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
To answer your question, I think if you're listening now and you don't feel like you're confident, everything's kind of buttoned up in the event. I mean, if we think about, like, what if a fall happened and required cash on hand, required somebody to know a little bit more about your financial life than they do now. I think it's good to go out of your comfort zone if this is an uncomfortable topic or something that you feel. I mean, there's no shame or embarrassment that needs to happen no matter what financial situation that you're in now. It is what it is at this point, and we just need to do the best we can with, what that picture looks like. It doesn't cost any money to sit and have a conversation with a financial planner who can let you know if you're a good fit for the service that they can offer you, and if they can provide value and help you with answering your questions and getting you in a place that can, help you determine, will your money last your lifetime? Do you have the insurance that you need in the event of long-term care is needed? And is the family all, whoever is part of this conversation? That's what we do for clients, is help facilitate these conversations and help ensure that people aren't being taken advantage of by by another professional, or that they're not in a vulnerable position, that if they're not working with a professional, that they're putting themselves at risk for, being taken advantage of in some way, or just not, we want people's money to last as long as they do. And that's what we help people with. There's things that you can do to ensure that you're in a better position. And the sooner you address this, or at least get someone to take a look at it, the better off you're going to be.
And I think remembering that there's other ways to communicate. Like, it doesn't have to be an awkward face-to-face conversation, right? send an email, write a letter, have that be kind of the icebreaker. Because having a face-to-face conversation about hard stuff is pretty direct, and that can be hard. So reach out to other different types of communication that might feel a little bit safer in that vulnerable situation.
We have a lightning round that we like to do, but before we jump into the lightning round, is there anything that we did not cover today that you would like to kind of talk about to have our listeners?
No, I think you did a great job.
That's great.
We think you did a great job.
Yeah, no, very easy conversation.
Yeah,
Thank
very.
you. So we're going to do the lightning round.
Okay.
First thing that comes to mind. First question is, one early warning sign people shouldn't ignore as they age.
Starting to limit their activities because of fear.
A spouse covering for their loved one.
One thing people should start doing this year for their future self.
Get financially organized.
Move.
That's easy.
One conversation people should have sooner rather than later.
What if conversations that encompass all the topics we talked about today?
Conversations about limitations and projections of the future and how that might look.
We talked a little bit about this, but one misconception about aging that you'd love to erase.
That you can't exercise somebody hard as they age. We actually want to exercise hard and more intense than we ever thought prior.
That those later years aren't as fulfilling and as exciting and adventurous as the younger ones.
I love that one.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
The last one is, and when people walk away from this conversation, what's the word you hope stays with them?
Independence.
Care.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your
This was a great
time.
conversation.
This was fun.
Today's conversation reminds us that aging well doesn't happen by accident. It happens through intention, through the choices we make today that shape how we live tomorrow.
What Annie and Larissa shared so clearly is that strength and security are not separate paths. They're deeply connected. Physical health supports independence, financial clarity supports choice, and together they create stability in moments that might otherwise feel overwhelming.
And if there's one message to take from this conversation, it's this. Preparation isn't about fear. It's about freedom. It's about creating a future where decisions aren't made in crisis, but with clarity, confidence, and support.
Because when families take the time to plan, whether it's building strength, having financial conversations, or understanding available resources, they're not just preventing problems. They're protecting dignity, independence, and quality of life.
Annie, Larissa, thank you for the work you're doing and for bringing such a powerful, collaborative perspective to this conversation. It's a reminder that no one has to navigate aging alone when the right support is in place.
And if today's conversation resonated with you, we've included ways to connect with both Annie and Larissa in the show notes. We also have resources to help take your next step toward preparation and peace of mind.
We're Tasha Beckman and Nicole Rabalato, and this is the Empowered Elder Podcast, where we talk about home, art, and how preparation today creates possibility for tomorrow.